This episode of the Rainbow Brainskull Hour is brought to you by the Internet. If you go on the Internet and enter in the correct coupon code for the correct product or service on the correct website, you'll receive 10% off or some shit. My guest today is the amazing Lizzy Cooperman. She's an amazing comedian, and she's recording her debut album this Saturday at the Lyric Hyperion in Los Angeles. Enjoy this amazing, good, best episode. Hit it! Welcome to the Rainbow Brainskull Hour. You're gonna have a good real time today. Every week there's a new guest, so that you'll learn something new. 'Cause that's all that we're here to do. We already have the conversation. Good water.
So delicious.
Yeah, the best water you've had.
Yes. Sometimes I feel like I take a sip of water and I feel like I'm just like this plant that's been sitting on a windowsill.
Are you good about drinking water?
No, are you?
I'm terrible about drinking water. I get dehydrated constantly all day. I drink coffee nonstop, and I even am bad with plants. My girlfriend got me an air plant, and it died. Or it's not died yet, but it's close.
What is an air plant?
It's just a plant that doesn't need much except for like a little squirt of water and I guess that's it, a little bit of sunlight.
That's tricky though, because when it's like you just squirt it, then it makes you feel like you need to have some kind of like gracefulness.
Yeah, it's like too little, you think?
Yeah.
It's easier to just pour globs of water all over it.
I think so.
Do you sound okay to yourself? I sound kind of okay. If you sound tin canny, that's okay, because that's not what you're going to sound like when the thing's actually mixed and mastered, and when I put all the EQ balancing to get that rich, buttery sound that I want. But just trying to get the talking.
I listened to
going.
Some of the podcast. It's so good.
Oh, really? Of mine?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
I really liked. Well, I like who you have on as guests.
Our comic friends.
Yes.
Did you know that I told?
Really.
Or interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, interrupt you? Oh, well, Scott Thompson. I just wanted to name drop Scott Thompson
cool.
of Kids in the Hall was asking me about. It's like, oh, what's the podcast about? And I said, oh, it's about creativity, motivation, and death. And he goes, oh, do you bring on experts about death? And I go, no, I just bring on my comic friends. And I
feel like they know enough. No, it's true.
Yeah, it's better that way, because then there's no pretense of, and even, we're not even close friends. Like, we've been on a few shows together. I believe I first met you at Andy Ritchie's year memorial death.
Yes.
What do you call it? Basically, we all just gathered around at our friend's house to remember Andy Ritchie and sat on the couch and watched old videos of him. But I didn't know you as a comic, really, then. I just knew you as Lizzy the person, and then Lizzy the comedian. And then I was like, oh, I got to get that Lizzy on this thing right now. And then I did. I manifested it.
I love that this is happening.
That you're on it?
I'm so happy about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Then the feeling is mutual.
You're so talented.
Thank you. That should be the whole episode. I love praise and attention. Let's go for it. But what do you like about it? You like the guests?
I just felt like it got you have a way of like getting into people.
Okay, good.
I listened to a little bit of Mike Kaplan, who I love.
Oh yeah, Mike's wonderful.
And I just I don't know, I felt like you guys kind of struck some good nerves, you know?
Yeah, we're good about that. I think that we have the tendency to help each other wax poetically for a long time, and giving each other space to do so and benefit from the ways that we articulate our fascination with everything. I think we both like to go off the deep end and talk about the universe and it's all one and all that hippy-dippy stuff.
Right.
And I feel like you might be into that kind of thing too. I heard that you like tarot reading, and or is that the right thing to say? I heard you like tarot reading.
No, I do. I did a reading for someone last week, and then today I realized I had a card in my car, just a stray high priestess card.
What does that one mean?
Floating around next to my Kind Bar wrapper. It's kind of like this is a time when it's between when you come up with an idea and give birth to it. It's that kind of gestation period, and you're really intuitive and kind of just in tune with things. And
that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Is it one of do you have preference of cards, like when you see one drawn, does it trigger like, oh, that's a good one, or is it always completely dependent? Because I'm still figuring out what all the cards mean and what this whole thing is. I'm
too sensitive to do it for myself right now, I realized, because I used to do this thing where I'd be like, I'll just really quick like pick a card for the day and like let that inspire me. And then I think I picked the devil like 2 days in a row, and I was like, I'm feeling weird about this.
Have you seen The Simpsons with the Lisa gets her tarot drawn and death is the good thing, and then she draws the happy squirrel, and they're like, no, that's bad. Do you remember that?
That is so funny. No,
yeah,
I didn't.
It just shows it, because I know the death card doesn't mean death; it means change, and that could mean good if you're in a bad situation.
But like death does mean change too. That's the other thing. I mean, it does mean death.
Oh yeah, I mean there is no death if we want to jump right into it.
Yeah, I feel like by saying, oh no, death is a good thing in a card, you're basically telling someone death is a good thing in real life too. Which maybe it is.
Of not necessarily just the person, you mean, like of anything?
Like we're trying to comfort them, like, oh no, the card is good. It means change. But we don't do that in life. Like someone's on their deathbed, we're like, this is good. No. Don't worry about it. Like, this just means change. Like, you're getting rid of this life and passing into the next one. Don't worry about it.
People like it to a degree, but like you can't go to a funeral ecstatic and be like, yes, they're in the next place. But
exactly.
I haven't even been to lots of funerals or something, but at least I appreciate when it's not all sobbing, which if you can't control your emotions, don't control them, but kind of also be happy that you knew the person rather than just be sad that they're gone, because we're all going. Our train is coming for all of us. We don't know which train we're going to be on and who's going to pick us up. But what do you think about all that stuff? Do you spend a lot of time thinking about death at all?
Oh, yeah. I spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Does it frighten you, or you're more just curious?
Well, I have embraced it over the past few years because I was sick. I don't know if you knew, but I had...
No, I didn't. Let's get into it.
A few years ago, I got Lyme disease.
Oh no.
And I was
Is that
really
from
sick.
A tick?
Yeah, and it happened here in California, and it is here. It's not just on the East Coast, and you don't have to be hiking. And
it bit you indoors in your own home?
Yes.
That sucks.
And I didn't know what it was. I had a red circle on my leg. I think I was late for work. I was like, oh shit, I just got dressed, went to work. A few weeks later, by the way, if we go into this, we're really going to end up going into it because it's kind of a deep thing and it's kind of scary.
I like going into it.
If you want to go into it, we can.
Yeah,
but
let's go into it.
Okay. I just wanted to give you that
warning. We'll go into lots of stuff, but I definitely want to go into this.
So I got really sick. All of a sudden, I think I went drinking with friends one night, and I came home and I was like throwing up like all night, and I was like, wow, that was crazy. But then the next day I had a headache that never went away, and it was like moving around my head. It wasn't in one place, and I kept like calling urgent care and saying like, is this normal? Or the 24-hour like nurse line, you'd call. I'd be like, yeah, now it's like in my temples, now it's in the back of my head. And they were like, maybe you should go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor. I did an MRI. And when I got the MRI, they found something on my brain. This was only this was the very beginning of the journey. So much has happened since then.
And this is before Andy, right? So
this was after. Oh yes, this was before Andy died.
Okay. Oh yeah, just in case listeners don't know, the late great Andy Ritchie, you can look him up.
Andy Ritchie, one of the best comedians who ever lived. The total grasp on absurdity and how to keep it funny and relatable, and an incredible joke writer.
Oh, yeah.
And he and I we used to write together, and some of my favorite jokes have like touches of Andy in them. It makes me so happy to do those jokes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. When I started with him in Minneapolis, and I remember when I saw him, I was just like, I'll never see anything like this again. Like, this is the best.
Yeah, he was good for a long time. I only knew him as good, but he did start before me. But from people even from before, like other Minneapolis people would say he was one of those people that everyone looked up to even a decade ago. And yeah, his death came out of nowhere a year after the first symptoms of his brain tumor. He was dead even after we raised, I say we, but like everyone raised like over $100,000 for the surgery and still nothing. So it's a little reminder of, even if you do everything correctly, sometimes you can still get picked off.
Yes.
And so I was asking that because if you were going into that having known that already, it probably was more scary. Or you're saying it's before.
I remember the timing. So this was like 2014, I think this happened. And didn't Andy die in
2015?
2015, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it might have been around the same time. But anyway, so
right,
the
yes, because I remember going into the hospital and being like, because I never really, I had told Andy what was going on with me, but it was at a point where he was had already been through, I think, the first phases, or he'd already had brain surgery and stuff. So I wasn't like pouring it on like, Andy, my problems, you know, but we were friends. So we talked about it. So I went in and they were like, well, you have something on your brain in the front part, like a vascular malformation. It could be a new thing. Maybe you were born with it.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
That's someone else.
Did everyone say that?
No.
Okay. I almost stopped myself, but I just do. Okay.
I mean, I don't talk about it a ton. I just have started becoming more open about it because I feel like I have a little bit of distance now. Whereas when I was in it, I especially like with comedy, I was like, I'm not ready to talk. Like, I wanted comedy to be a place where I didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I was able to kind of air some of my emotions about it, like in little ways through comedy, but I wasn't like, this is my lime chunk yet or anything.
And a lot of your, your stand-up act isn't even in the style of like, okay, I'm going to be real and tell you about the last few months of my life. It's like, it's a theatrical thing mixed with real. And, not that it doesn't work in real life stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's the place to have done that.
Yes, I agree. That's very insightful. So
thank you.
So I had to figure out what this thing on my brain was, but then, so I had this thing on my right frontal lobe, but then all this other stuff started happening. I started to feel like there was like acid being poured through my arms. My body started jerking uncontrollably. Like I couldn't control my legs. It would happen at night. My legs would start kicking. I started having derealization. Like I go to the grocery store. I remember I was like in the aisle of like canned vegetables and like reaching for a can of green beans and being like, this isn't my hand. I'm not in my body. So I did get tested for MS a bunch of times, ALS twice, because eventually I couldn't feel my legs.
Could you still walk?
That was temporary, not being able to feel my legs. I should specify that. It wasn't like I was in a wheelchair. It was like I woke up and I couldn't move my legs. I had to like shake them for an hour.
Damn.
Before I had any feeling.
So it's clearly something coming from the brain that's just, taking over everying, which is one of the worst.
I went to 22 doctors. They all told me, oh no, your Lyme test came back negative. They told me I had fibromyalgia. They told me I had a seizure disorder. I got all these diagnoses for like 2 months. And it was when I lost feeling in my legs. I was at Bridgetown.
In Portland,
in the morning, yes. Bridgetown Comedy Festival. And
plugging a festival that I think is done now, right?
Or like the amazing Bridgetown.
Is it over now?
I think so.
I think they're shutting it down, which it had a good run, and it's impossible to make a festival.
Incredible.
So yeah, shout out to Andy Wood and whoever else makes it.
Yes, and Matt Bronger.
Yeah, Matt Bronger. There we go.
Yes, definitely. Charlene, and we just try to
the
remember
the Academy God,
exactly.
Especially number one, the big guy upstairs. And so at Bridgetown.
Yes. Okay. So then I came back and I was working at the Soup at the time and my nose started like tingling and I looked it up and it was like, this is a symptom of either ALS or Lyme disease. And I knew, I was like, I have Lyme disease. I know my test was negative, but I know and then I started reading that the testing isn't accurate. It only catches like 33%.
Oh, that's bullshit. It fails, and it fails by a lot. It's not like 50%.
No.
It's in the lower percentage of it.
Like, can you imagine if like HIV test if there was no accurate? I mean, it's ridiculous. No research goes into testing, And they think that's because there are a lot of theories that it was a man-made illness.
AIDS or Lyme disease?
Lyme disease,
So they injected it into the little tick and then it does it? Sorry, 1 second. There we go. You think I'm going to edit that part out? No way. The listeners get the real raw deal of me pausing the thing and clicking on the thing. And if the cat needs food, then I go feed Yoshi.
Yes.
Like,
really?
Yeah, I let it just happen. I don't edit a perfect thing. There's some people that edit their podcasts and take out silences. They truncate the silence. So if we have like a moment like this one, it would have been sped up super quickly because then you're just getting content. And I think that messes with the tempo and timbre of people feeling like they're actually in the room with us, just sitting here listening to the real shit.
That's interesting. Because sometimes I listen to a podcast and I'm like, oh, it sounds like it's been the same for so long. And that's probably why.
It becomes homogenous.
Yes.
Yeah, like that. I might have already talked shit about this, and I'm trying to not talk shit so much, but it's just such a good example. But I love that in that Foo Fighters Sonic Highways documentary, there's all this emphasis of going to different cities and using old studios to record stuff. And then at the end, they all end up sounding the same because they just produce it so much because they're, they have all that money and know-how of producing.
Funny.
So of course they're going to know how to do the levels right and compress everything right. So it ends up just sounding homogenous. But also it's better than the album I put out. So I can't really
They're
talk.
like, this is the original auto-tune microphone.
But I digress. I feel like I went on a couple of tangents.
You put an album out?
Oh yeah, I have one stand-up comedy album called "You Were Good Too," and I'm working on another one. But I also have these ideas for other just albums that are, I guess serious music, but also kind of not serious. Like I'm a big Frank Zappa fan. I wouldn't put his music in serious or humor. It's just more like, whoa, that's interesting. That album is exactly like that album. There's nothing else like it. And that's what I'm fascinated by. People that can bring out their true themness and there's no one else like them and they get better as being a them, but they're not trying to be anyone else. And it's something I like about you a lot. You're very much a you. There's no one else doing the stand-up act you do. It's very much your own voice and take on things.
Thank you.
And I think that's very rare nowadays, and also not rare, but rare in the giant public eye. It's not rare, and like I can name a bunch of people that have that quality, but I feel like they're underrated. But it might change, like the way that in
I like that.
the
I like
60s and 70s they owned the music industry, musicians did, and I'm hoping that we are going to start owning the being ourselves industry and not having to sell out but also make money. That was a long rant. It had nothing to do with anything, but you're good, you're unique, and you have you don't have Lyme disease now, hopefully. I want to keep going back into there where we put that pin back in there.
I'm going to tell you, so I figured it out on my own, and that's what's scary is after seeing like 22 doctors, I was the one who realized it. Then I went to a specialist. They sent my blood to this lab called IGenix, which is like the one lab that does like thorough testing for Lyme. I found out I had it. I immediately had to start giving myself like heparin injections because my blood was coagulating. I went on all these
every
drugs.
Day?
Yeah. And I was in treatment for 2 years. I thought I was better. And then I had a stroke. And it was so I mentioned that brain thing in my right frontal lobe. This was in the back.
Oh, wow. Unrelated or both stemming from the Lyme?
Well, now it's like, it was from Lyme.
Okay.
Because now on my MRI, I have several like lesions on my brain. So it's in there.
Still?
I'm sure. There's no cure for it. And I deal with it every day.
So are you saying that you're still in that state of needing to inject yourself, or not to get ahead of the story here, but it's put me in this state of suspense because like, how is she sitting here in front of me? Obviously we get to some happy ending if you manage to be here and your arms aren't jerking around and you're able to maintain cohesive thought.
I'm so lucky in that So a lot of people who get Lyme, you get multiple infections with it. So Lyme is just like an umbrella term, but when the tick bites you, you can get like 5 different diseases. And one of those is called babesia. And most people who get Lyme get babesia, which makes you like exhausted. So most people who have Lyme are like, I spent years in bed. I did not get babesia, which I'm so grateful for.
So that's the last layer of hell, and
Yes,
Lyme is
it's like a
what, the
malarial,
first?
Yes.
What layer of hell is Lyme of the 5? I know there's 7 or something, but let's make it 5.
Well, they all do different things. Like Lyme, so you can put it into remission, and I think I'm kind of there. Like my symptoms are very minimal, but I have to constantly be maintaining it. Like I know I have Lyme, so like yesterday I had to get a B12 shot, which I do once a week because I'm B12 deficient. That
was always
messed up
there?
my thyroid. No,
all brought on. So were you super healthy before this
Yeah.
came about?
Yeah, I didn't eat sugar, and this I kind of regret. I'm like, why didn't I eat like everything when I could? I really am like, why did I care about like being thin or like I turned down so many slices of cake and like beautiful desserts and plates of nachos that now I look back and I'm like, I should have just eaten it all.
And then you'd have the memory of eating it as
Yes.
opposed to not having the memory of eating it. I mean, either
I
way,
think
it's
so.
gone. Either
But
way,
it did
it's in the
prepare
past.
me. It did prepare me for this because I have to be really careful with diet and stuff.
Because you're super like physical on stage,
Right.
and you're doing stuff, whether it's at Underbelly where you're doing not a stand-up act and doing like a weird character thing under a blanket. The way you're moving your body around, it's like a character in Soul Calibur, like the Voldo character. He's bending his back backwards. I don't know if I'm describing it right, but it seems like you have a background in, you like to move your body and
Right,
stuff.
I do.
You're not
I like
a
to be
stoic.
physical.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so many
those are-
comics are
yeah.
just stoic and stand there, and
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I am.
No,
Doesn't
it's
matter.
true. Like everyone, yeah. And I think there is, it's interesting. Some people start out kind of doing stand up in the way that they want to do it. And they're like, oh, yeah, I have this vision for what I want to do on stage. And here it is. And that's it. For me, it's like my stand up has changed a lot.
Always
through the
finding
years.
it.
Yeah.
I think it's better that way. I think once
Mm-hmm.
you've found your voice, it's done, and you're not interesting anymore. You might make millions of dollars, but you're not interesting to me, the person that might pay you $5 at some point. But I think it's a trap to think that you've found your voice. There's always something new you can do. You can
or
always
having to put everything through a certain filter because you think that's where you've landed. kind
Yeah,
of.
like, oh, I don't talk about, that kind of stuff in my persona. My voice doesn't lend itself to that. It's like no one cares about your voice. It's just something you're making in your head, and people are too busy to really put you in a box. You're often putting yourself in a box. Like, look at, I don't know, Donald Glover. No one is being like, oh, he should have just stuck to those sketches he did with his buddies, or he should have just stuck to rapping and not done that. There might be a few voices like that, but he's been one of those characters that's flowered and have different petals and different directions, and
Right.
I don't think there's any signs of stopping. Maybe his next one, who knows what his next thing will be. Maybe he'll be like a really good dad, and then
Right.
he's like the dad guy or something, or
Good dad.
or he's just a good basket weaver, or
Right.
I imagine it's more entertainment related
Right.
stuff. But he's an inspiration, as are other people that do
Yeah.
the multiple things.
That's so true. But it's interesting because you were asking me about death.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, so I'm mostly better. There's no cause for concern right now, at least, except that none of it is covered by insurance. So, and it was incredibly expensive. So in that respect, it also took a toll.
Oh,
It just
yeah.
kind of takes everything you have in a way. And then you kind of look at your life and you're like, okay, so I have to make whatever I do not important or be precious about it, but I almost feel like I'm like, okay, I've got to do everything I need to do because this has taken a toll on my body, and I'm guessing has probably shortened my lifespan in some respect.
You never know, because the technology is accelerating at a
Okay.
very fast rate. So
I love that.
You could live forever. You could also die today
Yes.
on your way home. And I mean, and your awareness could continue after that. Who knows? We can get into that in a moment. But yeah, I don't know. It's safer to try to live for another 10 years. Ray Kurzweil might not be right. And what I always think about is, Ram Dass and Tim Leary, they researched LSD. Back then he was known as Richard Alpert, but basically these Harvard psychologists that researched LSD in the 60s, and they were turning people on, and they genuinely believed back then that, like, how long do you think it's going to take for humankind to be enlightened? Like, I'll give it 10 years tops. Like, now that we've got this stuff, we're turning people on. Within 10 years, we're going to be completely enlightened. And it obviously didn't play out like that. So I think about that when they're saying the singularity is going to fix everything. I always think.
And what was his relationship to LSD? They
didn't first synthesize it. That's this guy, Albert Hoffman. But they were the first people to research it in academic setting, and then got kicked out of school eventually because I think Nixon and stuff like that. But basically, the future can seem like a really cool, magical place, but I don't guarantee it. But we do seem to be at some tipping point, don't we? It seems like...
that's interesting.
Yeah, the basketball is... I just imagine it like a basketball. You drop, it bounces once. On the first bounce, you've got, like, hydrogen, it bounces again, then you're getting more complex molecules, it bounces again, you start to get life, you start to get multicellular life, you start to get agriculture, you start to get the printing press, you get television, radio before that, you get internet, you get smartphones, and it's like we've lived through, you and I probably grew up around the same time, we witnessed the internet be slow. We weren't dependent on it. We watched messengers pop up, ICQ, Friendster, Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire, MySpace, Facebook dying a little bit, Twitter dying a little bit, Instagram, Snapchat's in the lead. Instagram takes Snapchat stories. It's this race of stuff. Like we're having to relearn the technology so quickly, and a lot of it's scary, but I think there's these breakthroughs being made in all different fields, not just tech, but medicine too. And once you've got the little nanobots that can just go into you and do what the surgeon would need to do crudely with a knife, then you might just be fine. You might be like just back at whatever age you want within 10 years. 50-year-old you might be 21-year-old you, or 24-year-old you, or 18-year-old you, whatever you want to feel like being. It could play out like that. And then it starts to be scary in a different way, because then some people might get, that whole getting what you want can sometimes be like the post-depression after. It's like, well, I got everything I wanted, and now I'm still here. I still feel empty. There's something missing from the unity of everything. I'm not going to start talking about Christ or God or anything, because I don't think that's going to fix it either.
Even if I were a millionaire, I would still just be here eating tomato soup and checking my emails.
Oh, yeah.
And having those reactions where I'm like, oh, God. Like, stuff like, I'm like, it would be exactly the same.
Not exactly, but it would be. There'd still be some more levels to beat, I guess, is a way of putting it. But,
is this a Williams-Sonoma brand microphone?
No, this is Shure. This is a Shure brand microphone, and this is a cup holder or like some kind of iPad holder or something that I don't know where I got it from. But my girlfriend was going to throw it out, and I said no, I can use it as something. So I kept it to use this as a microphone holder. Yeah.
Why is death on your mind?
I don't know. I guess it always has been since, I wouldn't say as far as 5, but definitely since about 10 or 11. Just something hit me. It wasn't even a death in the family. I was just kind of staying up late at night during a few period of weeks, just staring at the ceiling, trying to comprehend non-existence, knowing that I'm just not going to exist one day, and I didn't exist before I was here, and what is this dance of form and stuff like that. It's just existence bothered me, I guess. I couldn't put it together why there was something instead of nothing. I wasn't brought up with religion. I was brought up with scientific parents, engineer parents, so very rational, love reading sci-fi, love reading Scientific American, Wired. Came from Iran, so
Did your parents meet in like a chemistry lab?
No, but they met in, I guess, grad school or maybe undergrad or something. Just, in school though, but not in chemistry lab. My mom was actually physics and my dad is chemistry. but I wasn't brought up with any of that stuff yet. I wasn't buying the story of, well, there's the Big Bang and there was just a focused piece of energy that expanded outwards because of random chance, and given enough time, chance will just make everything happen. So I might have mentioned this before in another podcast, but whatever, I'll repeat myself. There's this thing called the fine-tuning problem. And the fine-tuning problem is if the electromagnetic field or density of the universe was just a little bit different, it wouldn't work. Like, everything seems to be perfectly balanced when we look out to create a universe. And the argument for it is that there's unlimited parallel universes that are all a mess, and we just happen to be in the one that's the right one. And
what do you mean the right one?
The one that that we exist, that we can experience the feedback loop of consciousness, that we're in the present moment, the felt presence of immediate experience. Playing through this life, you're clearly seeing stuff rather than it being nothingness, because nothingness makes total sense. If there was nothingness, that would make so much sense. Why should there be anything? But there's stuff. So there's got to be something to trace back how it's able to do this.
Is this have you been having conversations like these since you were young with your parents?
With my parents a little bit, but from different angles. I wouldn't buy into the woo-woo stuff earlier on, but as time went on, I started to buy more into the fact that it's strange stuff can happen, especially if they're saying it's a simulation, and that doesn't mean that there's some real place where we're on a hard disk and then that's the real world. It's more of a way of describing how nature works, that it's simulated by consciousness rather than by each individual particle being rendered, if that makes sense. Did I go too much on a rant here?
The consciousness, it's
fundamental.
Okay.
Yeah, consciousness is fundamental, and not necessarily human consciousness with all of your brain working, because your brain is a tool that's picking up different parts of reality and putting it together and then feeding it to you so you can make decisions, so you can survive longer. So I'm not saying that's the thing that's eternal, but the point awareness behind your social identity, physical identity, all that, the point of awareness behind that's forever real.
I feel like you're doing really well, and let me tell you why.
In what?
Just mentally, because you're thinking, if you weren't doing well, you would just be trying to slog through day by day.
Oh, I am.
You seem like you're in a place where you're able to relax enough into your life that you can think about the bigger questions.
Yeah. But that's a result of you think what you think, right? Your mind is occupied. I think about other stuff too. I just don't talk about it's not, I'm fine. I still am wondering, how am I going to pay off that medical debt? I didn't put a value judgment on your life. I just was kind of
this is nice that he is kind of enjoying things on this level, I think.
Yeah, enjoying breaking apart.
Yeah,
It's a way of dealing with it, I guess. It's its own therapy. I have to.
Right.
And I've to bring up Catherine again. Catherine doesn't really care about when I have put on a 2-hour lecture of why this is a simulation, why this is a hologram, that kind of stuff. Right. Yet she does believe in crazy stuff. It's the universe is magic and all that, but she doesn't need the proof step by step logically. It's more, she's a type of person that feels it inherently, thus does not need the logic step by step connection. But since I'm a logic guy, I seek the logic connection so that I can justify there being magic and wonder and eternal love and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And and a lot of it could be coping mechanism too. I'm not ruling that out either. To bring up Timothy Leary again, right. he would think that all psychedelic experiences were just neurochemical language dance thing, and any thought of afterlife thing is just you wanting to go on. There's no such thing. And on his deathbed, his last words were, why not? Why not? And a big smile on his face, and then he left.
Oh my
that
God.
body. But so with you being brought close to death or something worse, which is being trapped in your body with no control over it, because
Right.
if you were to just be done with it, then even if you had just tons of medical debt and all that stuff, at least you get to leave it behind. That's just part of
Right.
this game. Like, you ever
Are you
die
trying to sell me death right now?
a little bit?
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, tell me more. So leave
Life's
it
way
behind.
cooler. Life's 100% cooler than it,
Yeah,
because I don't know what's on the
definitely.
other side of it. But I'm willing to accept that there could be a other side rather than one side and
Right.
nothing. But that the Lyme bringing you closer to, losing control of stuff you see. That's stuff I just all take for granted right now. Whether that my body works, that my
Yes.
hands don't fling around everywhere, that I can keep a
Definitely.
thought in my head, that
Right.
that doctors don't say that you're fine and it's probably psychosomatic and you just need to get a little rest or
Right.
something.
Oh my
or
God. I had a
whatever.
neurologist go, can I ask you a question? And I go, sure. And he goes, do you have any friends? And I was like, I do. And he was like, I think you need to see a psychologist or whatever. Like,
They were saying it was just psychosomatic.
Yeah, that was in the beginning.
My
yeah.
brother had that actually, which I need to
He had
check
Lyme?
this. He thought he had Lyme, and I think it turns out it was psychosomatic. And he read this book convincing him that he didn't have it, and he doesn't have it anymore. And he's got a baby now and everything. He's doing
Okay.
great.
Well, if he
But-
wants to talk about it,
Oh, yeah. I'd love to get to the bottom of it because I don't know if he had something similar and still needed a little treatment, but I think it was just psychosomatic.
well, sometimes men, so it affects women more because men have more of a robust immune system. And so they're less likely, like they can still get bitten, but sometimes their immune system kind of overrides it.
That's
Takes
not
care of
fair.
it.
I mean, a lot
I
of
know.
being a woman isn't fair, and seems like women should have more immune system for,
Right. I also know someone who had it and then got pregnant and her immune system kicked in and it like changed her whole physiology.
I heard that can happen with endometriosis too, but not that that's a strategy. Like you shouldn't get,
Oh, really?
yeah.
That it triggers your immune system?
Or no, that it can fix endometriosis, which is when your
oh.
organs are glued together.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget
That's
what
really-
makes it.
that's
It's like
really
produces too
interesting.
much estrogen and then it makes your organs glue together. So when on your period and stuff, it makes it really uncomfortable.
Right.
But
But yeah, so you think your brother went through this though?
yeah, he
Possibly.
for sure went through symptoms, whether it was
Right.
real or not. I'm pretty sure it ended up being psychosomatic, but the symptoms were real. I saw him be really sick, and my dad was convinced that it was all in his head. So, and my dad's a super funny guy, and he was like, he's taking a family photo, and he's like, everyone with Lyme disease move to the left.
No.
Yeah, and then my brother had to move to the left, and then he's
That-
like, can I get you anything? Some tea with Lyme? And would just always poke fun at
Oh my
him, and my
God.
brother would be all serious, like, it's serious. And my dad's kind of betting on the fact that it's not serious, because if it's not serious, then he wins by joking around, and then if it is, then, doesn't look
Then
good.
he goes, "Oh, I was just kidding.
Mhm.
I was kidding."
But, it's out of love, and he's a funny guy and
All
likes to
right.
joke around. I admire that.
right.
And it might just be the little brother in me too, because I don't know if you're a younger sibling or older
Right.
sibling, but there's an inherent need to annoy the older sibling as a younger sibling.
Right.
You just gotta.
yeah.
You have to.
What is your brother do? Is your brother
He's a professor at Boston University of
Okay.
electrical engineering in signal processing, which I believe is the thing he's working on is. Yeah, he can. If he listens to this, he can correct me. But whatever, I'm going to butcher it. But something about the Wi-Fi signal being distributed so that rather than it being cut like a pie, like everyone can harness the same amount of Wi-Fi rather than it being distributed when there's more people on it. So
Oh,
making the
interesting.
internet faster, and I get to see that window into academia through him and how so much of your time is spent grading papers or reading stuff to get a grant, and they don't want to give you a grant because you're not hip right now, and nanotech is hip right now, and no, deep learning is hip right now, no, it's got to be VR thing, so you're...
That sounds like our business.
Yeah, everything's the fashion business now, isn't it?
A little
Before, only the fashion business was the fashion business. Now everything has to be the fashion business. Like 2 weeks ago, that's worthless. Who cares? How many Vine subscribers do you have? You still have your Vine account? Get out of here. Vine is dead. You look bad by having it.
Right.
And whether as people who have the look at me disease, we kind of have to be present on all these platforms.
Is that how you see it?
I see it both ways. I see it good because like the nonstop social network stuff it's taxing and a lot of sitting on the computer and staring at screen, but also it's connected me with a lot of cool people who I wouldn't have met otherwise, who have discovered me. It's led to money, not a lot of money, but it pays the bills because people discover me.
The instant gratification is so dangerous.
In just fishing for likes all the time?
Yeah, I think it's really toxic. I was just listening to I almost went to Kabbalah last night, which I do sometimes.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I think me and Ryan Singer were talking about that.
Oh, really?
Which he brought you up, actually, and he didn't even know you were coming on here, and it was a weird thing that's happened before where a guest mentioned someone who I'm having on the very next time.
I love Ryan. He's so talented.
Oh, yeah, he's a wonderful guy. We went off the deep end for 4 hours.
I couldn't believe this was at Underbelly the other night, this show at Dynasty Typewriter. How committed he was to so many different bits. He had thought them all fully through, and they were all so funny.
Oh, with their own costume change and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
He is a gem. But so I was going to go to Kabbalah last night, but I ended up just listening to this lecture. But he was saying, don't be a swamp, be a river.
Ooh.
And
what
I
does that
feel
mean?
like...
Yeah, you're going to say.
Well, it's about instant gratification. The swamp is connected to the ego, which I feel like is a big part of social media of I posted this thing, now I'm on a high because people liked it, and now that high is gone.
Yeah.
Whereas a river is something that's, there's a constant flow to it, and it's not dependent on others' reaction.
Can it not be both?
In a way, online, I guess social media is a performance in a way, but it's not.
It's more our PR arm, don't you think?
Yeah,
it's our public relations.
Those two things get kind of confused, and I feel especially with comedy, which is it's a process, and it's not meant to go quickly. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure some comedians are geniuses, or some people develop quickly or faster than others. But I feel there's this need to be this is my brand, this is my thing.
Oh yeah.
Remember, I'm hot too, or what?
Yeah, youth worship.
All that's kind of okay, but what are you doing on stage?
Yeah, it's definitely it's only good, I think, as a supplement. If you're using it as just your meal and you're not actually going out and performing. This is just for comedians. If you're not a look at me person, then who cares? You don't have to go out perform at anything. But we definitely need human contact. Putting someone in solitary is the worst punishment you can give anyone. And
I don't think it's all negative, but I do think it can be dangerous. And I feel mixing kind of the idea of live performance with social media, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, everything is kind of in a way, you could say they're separate, but then it's oh, what about Instagram stories? You're still on there, you're performing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
How do you feel about stories?
I enjoy stories.
More than just regular posts that stay there forever?
Yeah.
That's weird. I'm still adjusting to it, and I guess because it's specifically what I do, and a lot of which I just need a new strategy. I need to figure out what I'm going to do on stories.
No, you don't. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it at all?
No.
Oh, but
or just take pictures of your artwork and put them in a story.
That's
I just
part
think,
of it.
Don't we shouldn't be exerting ourselves to show who we are constantly through multiple platforms. Because then how are we going to enjoy our lives? How could we not be depressed if that's what we're doing? How could we not be a swamp?
We're doing it to ourselves. We're swampifying ourselves.
We are swampifying ourselves. I have a thing now where I try to keep my phone off for 3 hours out of every day.
Isn't that so funny? Whereas if someone had told you that 10 years ago that you spend 3 hours on your phone, it would have been seen as an addiction. And now we're spending at least 50% of our time on there, which is why I see the stuff as... So my rationale as to why I consider social media stuff important for what I do, because I don't want to go to a building and get a regular job, and I like to do what I do, and I want more people to know about it. I just go to where they are. If they weren't on social media, I wouldn't care about it. If they were at the mall, I'd go to the mall. But since everyone is spending their time looking at the rectangle, I'm like, well, why not paint the rectangle with something other than a Capital One ad? Why don't I put a little picture on there with a reminder or something that I think is funny or something that brings value to me, and then share it? And then when other people see it, I get part of it is vapid, like the way that even some of my own stuff describes getting hearts and stuff. It's a fake fix, but at the same time, we're looking at little pictures of people that we know and don't know yet and haven't seen in a long time, and it's just kind of nice to see, like, oh, look, they liked it. I hope they're okay. It's good to hear from them because we can't call 100 people a day, or maybe we could, and then we'd be happy. But it's mainlining that. It's a variety of, like, I don't want to talk to 3 people today and have a meaningful conversation. I want 200 or 500 people to kind of just give me a tap on the shoulder, like heart, pat on the back, because I guess we're touch starved in a way, and we need that little touch.
That's really interesting.
Isn't it going to get strange? Like, we're literally giving people hearts, and that would have been seen as a fruity thing, like before. It's like, oh, you're giving hearts to your friends, but now it's like, oh, I heart that, bro. Even the most aggro, like, workout fitness brand account dudes who are all about that thing still are getting hearts and giving out hearts and like shares. And I think as we move into the virtual world, it's going to be like a literal, like, touch, like, patted you on the back, good job thing, and you'll have to then deal with
one
that.
Is just made eye contact.
Oh yeah, made eye contact is a good one. I think that's why we like selfies. It's because you're making eye contact with the person on there. And
why we like selfies.
Yeah, I think it's why I like stalking people and staring at their selfies for 5 hours.
Because
we like like staring into their eyes, and we wouldn't have otherwise stared into their eyes. But But so, in case I wasn't clear on any of that stuff, it's I'm torn as well. I like it a lot, it's also I brought this up with Ryan too. Like, I didn't speak to you once to summon you here. I just interacted with the rectangle and pressed a few characters on the rectangle, and then that created a message that you saw, and then you typed on your rectangle or your computer another thing, and then we coordinated, and we end up here.
It was a portal into this world.
Yeah, so as long as you're using it for that and you're not forgetting about actual human interaction, then
I love
that's
talking
good.
on the phone.
Oh, really? Still?
I have a few friends who I love talking to.
Who are your 90s girl phone friends or boy phone friends?
I have a friend named Jan Davidson, who's a hilarious comedian. I talk to her on the phone all the time. I talk to Chase Bernstein on the phone.
Oh, Chase is great. Shout out Chase Bernstein.
Yes, she's so funny. I could go through the log.
Yeah, keep going through it. I like to know who is in whose circles, because we're all friends with each other.
Sometimes I talk to Karen Kilgariff.
Oh, Karen Kilgariff, also wonderful. Shout out to my favorite murder.
Yes.
And she's got another one, right? She does like a ton of podcasts. Do you need a ride with
Chris Fairbanks?
There we go.
Another person I talk to on the phone on occasion.
Oh, really? Fairbanks?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an Austin guy like me.
I love talking on the phone.
And
my friend Marianne, who used to live here, Marianne Sirik, another really funny comedian. I talk to her.
Do you prefer it to like coffee?
That's interesting. Yeah, sometimes.
Because you can do other stuff, like do the dishes or doodle or fold clothes,
you can have
or whatever
like
you're doing.
Connection or kind of work something out. Yeah, but I think it's important to be around people too. There's a physiological change once you've actually been around people. I have like a joke about this because I had a therapist who was like, "You're not getting enough oxytocin." It was like at a time where I was like, I didn't want to date anyone. I was just kind of isolating. And so she like told me to go to an animal shelter.
Oh, that gives you some, just petting cats
she
or
was
something?
like, you have to make contact with other living beings. I'm not going to do the bit. I'm like, and then.
How long is the bit? Or you just don't want to burn it, right?
Well, I just like, I don't know. It's just that I
don't
went
judge.
to the,
I don't judge if you want to actually do the bit.
No, it's fine. We can skip it.
Okay.
Ooh, it'll be on the album.
Okay,
That's
album.
such a great. Everyone buy the album that doesn't have a title yet.
When are you taping it?
I'm taping it March 31st.
Okay.
There are 2 performances, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. It's at the Lyric Hyperion. I'm working on making it free, and it's going to be great.
Right on. So Lyric Hyperion, everyone in the Los Angeles area, check it out.
Go.
And I don't fake the funk. I wouldn't tell you to go to a show if it sucks. Lizzy's actually good, and she's a weirdo, and she does a thing. Unless you've seen it before, you haven't seen this particular brand of stand-up before, so you gotta check out those different brands. There's so many different flavors out there that you gotta try, and not just get the packaged gray so I'm on Tinder, so I'm walking my dog, or just the big name people.
Isn't it funny how now Tinder jokes, much respect to Tinder jokes, but now they do have the feeling of like
airline food.
Yes,
it's the airline food joke of now, because it's before in the 80s comedians were successful, so they got to fly to do gigs and it was easy, so all their jokes was about the airplane. And now comedians are not successful and not good at being, maybe before comedians could lie more and they could sustain fake relationships, but now you can't fake stuff anymore, and maybe we're just more damaged because of porn. Not to badmouth porn, go porn is good. But, some people, as with anything, you can overdo it and break your brain and get addicted to the stuff. But now the jokes, are about Tinder and being a dog walker.
One more thing, plug the show. Mm-hmm. One more draw is that Karen Kilgariff is hosting it.
Oh, damn. Shout out to making a favorite murder. Making my favorite murder, and how many rides do you need with...
exactly.
Karen, I don't actually know Karen. I just know, I know her work. And,
I was going to have it be like, some people have other people perform on it, but I was like, why not just like host and then do it? You know what I mean?
Just one opener.
Straightforward.
They came to see you.
Yes. I go, yes.
Yeah. Yes, they always do. When did you start thinking about death?
When did I start thinking about death?
Yeah.
In 7th grade, it just like hit me that I was going to die. And I remember running downstairs and asking my mom, what am I going to do? And will you be in heaven? You know what? It was probably before 7th grade.
Are your parents religious? Because you had a concept of heaven.
Right. Well, I was raised Jewish. And my sister is actually clergy. She works in a synagogue. She's a cantor, which is like...
Oh, Cantor Donnell, like Big Mouths.
What is that?
Have you seen Big Mouths
No.
with Nick Kroll and John Mulaney? It's the best cartoon on Netflix right now. And basically one of the characters is Cantor Donnell, and the Jewish kid's dad is like kind of always saying like, the Cantor doesn't do anything. It's a scam. That's what I've been telling you. But that's his perspective. I'm not saying that.
Well, my sister was like an opera singer.
Okay.
So the cantor is the one who like sings and leads the
So you're all
congregation
performers. All the siblings are performers?
My oldest sister is in business, but she used to be a great violinist. Then my second sister was like a local like child actress. Like in Minnesota, like she did all the plays at like Children's Theater Company and the Guthrie when I was really young. So my mom would like take us to her auditions.
Oh, cool.
And I mean, I was way too young to be there because my sister was like,
so not cool from that perspective. Yeah.
But then my next sister was a singer. Yeah. Or is a singer. And my parents, we were raised like a little bit kosher. Like I never ate bacon or ham or sausage or anything like that. And my mom passed away 5 years ago. Kind of like a witchy person.
Witchy woman.
What?
Witchy woman. Yeah.
Yeah. like we were religious and my mom talked about God a lot, but she also would be like, give me your bracelet. And then she would like hold your bracelet and tell you about something that happened to you in your childhood. I saw her do that a couple times.
So something
She
that
had, like,
actually happened?
Traces of psychic, ability. Yeah. And that for some reason she said she stopped doing it. She felt like it went to a dark place.
Oh.
So my mom was kind of steeped in that world. She also studied Kabbalah briefly. And so I kind of feel like my studying Kabbalah kind of connects me to her a little bit.
Is Kabbalah like the first ancient texts of the Judaism?
No.
What is it?
As I understand it, you know what? Maybe. As I understand it, Kabbalah is kind of decoding those texts.
Oh, okay.
And unlocking the mysticism within them. So, for example, the name Adam is in Hebrew Aleph, Dalet, Mem. So like ADM, let's say. Because in Hebrew you put the vowel kind of under the letter. So it's like a silent letter with a A vowel, a D with a A under it, and then an M. So Adam. Exactly. So Adam is Adam. But if you break it up, if you're doing Kabbalah, you would say, so the first letter, the Hebrew equivalent of A, which is Aleph, means first, and Dam in Hebrew means blood.
Man. Blood.
What'd you say?
Man.
Close.
Yeah, blood. But man has blood in it.
You could have gone to it. That's really funny. So first blood. So the idea is that it can all kind of be taken apart, and it kind of unleashes this other kind of spirituality. It's really interesting. Chase and I actually went there with Chase Bernstein the first time I ever went a few months ago. And we were like, the whole time we were just like, this is insane. Like everything was hitting home.
Is there a lot of epistemology, like breaking down words type of things? Because I was listening to this one thing talking about the Kabbalah and Adam and its similarity to atom. And it was making all these ties of like mother and matter and father and aether, and how the mother is representing bringing you into the material world, and the father figure trying to drive you towards more. I'm butchering it right now, but little things like that, like good morning and the sound of mourn. And
really?
I'm not tying it together well, but basically a lot of secrets hidden in plain sight in our words that tie to ancient texts from their origin.
Wow.
And whether it's real or it's just, we're apes trying to tell stories and make connections is fascinating regardless.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of numerology as well. I'm still like in the beginning phases. I'm just dipping my I'm trying to think of it. I'm still dipping my mezuzah into
my mimosa in my mimosas.
Exactly.
What are mimosas? Toes
God, so
in Yiddish?
So yeah, it's really interesting though. And then I don't know. I'm not totally I'm not 100% on board with it.
Oh, that's
but only
good.
because I don't know everything about it. But one cool thing they do, if it's your first time going to Kabbalah, is afterward they were like, if anyone doesn't have a copy of the Zohar, which is like the little Kabbalah book, they're like, please see me afterward and you'll get a copy of it. And so they give you a little Zohar book. And when the woman gave it to me, she was like, if you open this book, just looking at it will bring light to you. Like there's light in this book. And she was like, we just ask that you don't bring it into the bathroom. Really? It's going to be my new Dave Barry Dating for Dummies next to the toilet. Just some light Zohar reading.
It's crease bent. It's got some water stain from when it overflowed. Poor books sometimes. Yeah, we bring our phones in there, and like that
Yes,
would have been
it's
seen
true.
as a weird thing, but now we just kind of all accept it unless you're a super germaphobe. But
Right,
everyone
right.
is playing on their phone in the bathroom, and the phone is
Right.
everywhere with us.
It's so
But I'm not a
true.
germaphobe. I think I'm of the school of you need a little bit of germs for your immune system. Don't always Purell after everything. Unless you've got
Okay.
some kind of autoimmune thing. You know yourself better. But I'm saying
Right.
for myself, like, not George Carlin far, where George Carlin was like, and I don't wash my hands after going to the bathroom. The only time I wash it is when I shit on it. And
does he say that?
yeah, I'm sure he was exaggerating, but I'm not that far. I think it's good to wash your hands and all that, but not pure. Are you germaphobe? Do you Purell every second?
That's so funny. I was just thinking, like, what if his act had no jokes, but it was just like, and I eat garbage, and I eat tuna fish cans.
Isn't that Oscar the Grouch? What are you fuckers doing? Fuck you.
Do I what? Sorry.
Oh, are you germaphobe or just normal?
I have like weird things. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I found that I get sick less if I don't touch my eyes.
Interesting.
I'm like, I stopped touching my eyes.
Why
3
would you
years
touch
ago.
your eyes? You
Well,
mean
someone told me
rubbing
that's
them?
how you get sick, is like you touch things, then you touch your eye.
And because there's
and people
less.
rub their eyes, that's the germ goes in there. And
Do you ever wear contacts?
once, like if I'm playing a part or something,
Okay.
yeah,
But normally just
I have them, but I don't wear them really.
and it's just a weird impulse to want to touch your eyes.
Well, I think a lot of people go like this. They wipe sleep out of their eyes. They go like this.
Oh, yeah, the eye boogers.
Even
yeah.
stuff like that. Or people touch their eyes a lot.
Carlin was really good about talking about stuff like eye boogers and little physical
You're
nuances.
loving Carlin
I
right
do.
now.
I miss the guy.
Really?
And I hadn't thought about him until I guess yesterday was brought up during Ryan's episode. And
Oh, really?
you just can't think of everyone every day. I wonder how many people we think of in an average day, whether it's 100 or 200 or something. But
Right.
just like try to pull some random person from high school who you haven't thought of in like a decade. You got him? You have your card?
Wait, who I haven't thought of in a decade. Yes.
Yeah, see,
Okay.
like, where were they? They were there the whole time, but you weren't carrying them in your
Right.
head. They were in some room in the hotel of your consciousness, and just, they're hanging out. They've got internet connection and baths and stuff and room service, but they weren't called out into the front of your consciousness for a decade, and we just called them out right now. And
That's why I love.
they were there the whole
yeah.
time. You love what?
I was just thinking about like if you're writing poetry or fiction, you go into those rooms in your brain.
Yeah.
You're able to draw, or comedy for that matter. But when do you write poetry or fiction or anything like that? That's not like
I wouldn't say I write No, some of it I do, but I don't call it poetry. I write
you're like
I
I
write
write
pretty-
manifestos.
oh yeah,
You
racist
kind of do.
manifestos.
In a way, you write
Yeah.
you write mini manifestos.
Yeah, I write longer ones, and I am working on an album, which is basically what I already do, but those things strung together. So rather than just phrase, it's like a bunch of phrases, and it's got the music arrangements and stuff to it. But that's all in the works. You can't really talk about it until it's done, or I don't like to
Right.
talk about stuff until it's done, because then it gets intertwined with the rest of the world rather than being this thing you incubate and then
Right.
you release in its entirety, and you get to see what it's when other people see, because they have the experience that you never have, which is looking at the whole thing in one sitting.
Right.
Like that Hay book, which is behind Cave Paintings for Future People. I didn't even tell my girlfriend I was making it. I just made it, and then one day she was the
That's
first person I
interesting.
showed, and just like, okay, what do you think
Right.
of this? Like, now that it's
To
all done.
incubate it, let it grow, let it stoke its power. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important.
Then it's coming completely from
Keep
your
the lid
connection
on
to
the
source.
Instant Pot, which I saw you had an Instant Pot.
Oh yeah, that's Catherine's too.
I mean, you can't let out the steam too early. You've
Don't
gotta
let the
keep
heat
it-
out of the oven, and don't decorate the cake before it's baked.
Ah,
That's another one.
wow. Okay, you're reminding me of some things that I need to remind myself of. Actually, Yeah,
which sometimes
okay.
it's okay, because sometimes, like,
Right.
here's devil's advocate for don't decorate the cake until it's baked. You might want to make an album cover before you make what the album is, because then you're just reverse making it, and that's kind of a fun way to play. Like, what would an album with this cover sound
Right.
like? Or sometimes you want to make the whole thing and then be like, okay, now that I've made the whole thing, what image would best
Right.
represent it? I think you can do it either way, but oftentimes we put the horse before the carriage, or carriage before the horse
Right.
is the phrase. We get
Yeah.
ahead of ourselves, forgetting the actual work we need to do.
Yeah. And I find that then, in order to return to it, if you've already let out some of the steam, you have to remember the reason you started.
Yes.
That I learned in Kabbalah. It was like, why do we start things we don't finish? We tell everyone, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Or whatever your thing is. Go back to the source. I have something I'm working on right now that my friend and I were like, we're not going to say anything. We told a few people. It's still moving along. But before we kind of like have a meeting or something, I try to go, let's remember that first moment that
That's smart.
Yes. The moment of creation.
Yeah. And
How excited you were, or the first time you did that joke, or like,
I feel like we get into that trap with stand-up. Like, think of the first open mic you did and how much courage it took to,
Oh my God.
to actually do that, and just whether you did okay or good, or you just ate shit the first time or first 5 times. It took a lot of courage. It had a
Right.
little, we felt the instability in our gut, which we've now helped calm, which I imagine you might maybe get nervous sometimes during shows, but probably nowhere near as what you used to be, right? I think you go up there pretty, I don't know what's happening inside of you, but you at least seem confident.
right.
You seem like you're having a good time, and
Yeah, I enjoy performing.
yeah, and you go all out. You're giving all you've got, and it seems like it would take, I mean, going back to the physical thing, you're moving around a lot. You're not phoning it in. Like, regardless of where the audience is at, you're giving it your all, and I think
Thanks,
that makes them come around to you like, oh, this is like, she's not doing a big intro because she's insecure or something. This is who she is.
This
And now,
is it.
like Brent Weinbach, I feel sometimes gets into that sometimes too, if he's doing road shows or something in middle of nowhere and the audience isn't prepared for what they're seeing, and he's doing this weird replica of a YouTube video he saw, and he's doing exactly that Puerto Rican guy's voice, and they're like, what's this? What's going on? But then after it's going on for 4 or 5 minutes, they're like, oh, this is the actual ride. Like, okay, I'm on board with the ride. Because it shows that you've thought about it more than the audience has.
Right,
You've prepared
right.
a lot.
Right.
But going back to that, remember why we started.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us start that open mic and then fall into a rut and then never do something that scary again. Whether that scary thing is, I don't know, maybe you've not mastered, but maybe you've done a lot of
I thought you were gonna say,
maybe you've done a
Go
lot.
on.
Maybe you've mastered comedy completely, and you can teach master class with Steve Martin, play a banjo, or direct short films, or write fiction novels.
well, I have a comment to make on masterclass.
Go for it.
Really? Do you want to finish your thought first?
I was just trying to say
We can
that.
flag master class for follow.
Oh, the end of my thought was like, don't let your first open mic be the last scary thing you did. Whether you have serious music inside of you and you want to do that, or you want to make film, or you want to ask out that girl or guy or that zer to the ball, then
Right.
do that scary thing. Don't just do one scary thing and then build an identity around it, because then you'll.
You mean and look back at it? What do you
Yeah.
mean and build an identity around it?
Like, you can you do your first open mic,
Right.
you start to get booked on shows. Now you're a comic, and you
okay.
never do a scary thing again. You know
Right.
you know how to write a joke, you know how to turn an audience around, you know how to do crowd
Right.
work, and this is what I do, and you
Right.
never grow after that. And if you're happy, then yeah, fine. I'm not telling you to just have to nonstop grow every day, because that's its
Got it.
own neurosis. But if you're unhappy, then it might be because you're not growing, and I think that is oftentimes the
Yes.
case. we feel like there's more in us, so it's destroying us from the inside if we don't let it branch out and grow.
Tell me how you get into a place where you feel like, do you...
Will you tell me the master class first,
sure.
too?
So I did one of the first master classes. I did Aaron Sorkin,
The director?
the West Wing creator.
Okay, he's not a director? Or he's just creator?
Aaron Sorkin.
I don't know. But go on. It doesn't matter.
Another friend I talked to on the phone.
Ooh. Creator of West Wing, a close personal friend of Lizzy Cooperman.
I was saying who texted me was Josh Fadum.
Josh Fadum.
I talk to him on the phone all the time. He's a great, an incredible performer. Oh, you know what?
What's he like on the phone?
Director.
What's Josh like on the phone? Does he get pretty serious?
Yeah.
Or is he always goofball?
Oh, no. Not at all.
He's another one of those
serious.
unique snowflakes.
He's serious. He's so unique.
I like that you guys are friends. That makes me happy.
Thank you. It makes me happy, too. Well, this is interesting because I didn't know he was the director.
So what was the master class about? And it was one of the first ones?
He's a screenwriter. He wrote A Few Good Men, The Newsroom, Steve Jobs, Social Network. Oh, and he made his directorial debut in 2017. So.
Oh, so I just caught it.
Yeah.
That's cheating. At the time you watched it, he wasn't. So that's true. He wasn't a director.
Exactly.
But we're just splitting hairs now. What was the...
So I did this course, and then some time passed. And then I decided to do another class, James Patterson's novel writing.
The Twilight guy?
I've never read a book by James Patterson. No, not the same guy.
But his name's James Patterson, too.
Oh, God.
Doesn't matter.
Why are you making me look this shit up? Seriously.
We don't have to look it up. We can
James
just dance in the fake name things.
Why? James...
Or it might be James Robertson or James Robinson. It's not important.
I mean, it's...
I won't do it to you again.
No.
Is it James Patterson?
This guy wrote books that, like, you would buy at the grocery store. I mean, I'm sure he's...
Romance novels?
I've never read a novel by him.
Romance novels or...
No. I think more mystery. Like, Along Came a Spider is the name of one. Or Kiss the Girls. First to Die. Detective Cross. Stuff like that. You know, these covers that have the very bold...
Yeah,
writing.
just his name and the title is super
and people
big.
are like, oh, I want to read the new James Patterson novel. It's not Twilight.
Isn't that crazy?
So
and those dudes have like 50 books.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. And I was like, I had an idea for a book, so I wanted to do a class. I love taking classes. So then I get an email that's like, hey, since you were one of the first people to buy a master class, which it was given to me as a gift, both of them were, you get a year of all of them for free.
Really?
And so I've been doing master classes.
You got all of them?
Incredible.
How much would it be if you
didn't? I'm
didn't?
doing Shonda Rhimes right now. Well, they're like $90 each. So
Oh,
I have
that's
like
crazy.
maybe
Jackpot.
$1,000 worth of courses.
That's awesome.
I know.
And then
I'm
it
so
expires?
excited. Within a year, I better learn how
Can
to
you download them?
fillet a duck. No. Like some of them are like cooking classes. Like
Direct
like
a film
3
or fillet a
chefs.
duck.
That's so funny.
Which one has the higher ROI? Do you
But the
get to
Kevin
download them?
Spacey one is gone now.
Because he
Yeah,
that 15-year-old kid. I don't even
and now
remember
it's
the whole
Samuel L.
story.
Jackson teaches acting.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a bad one.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they're just so entertaining. Like, I love listening to Shonda Rhimes. She is like, she's someone who I feel like she would have done really well, like, in high school. Like, she seems like she would have been, like, a great student. You know?
Is she bubbly?
I wouldn't say bubbly, but she's thoughtful and she knows what she's thoughtful and kind of like meticulous, I think.
Were you a good student?
I was not, but I was in high school, not a good student, but I was in college. But that was because my home was so chaotic growing up. A lot of fighting, yelling. It was like really hard to like be there and get anything done.
Were you the peacemaker or would you fight too?
I hid.
You hid?
Yeah. So my grades in high school, there was a point where
What was the fighting about?
it mostly stemmed from one parent who had an anger problem.
Okay.
My dad.
I was thinking that too.
I'm not close with him, but he's still alive. I just always feel like he's going to be like, I'll sue you. Like there's like,
this is a fictional, this is part of our fictional story.
Fictional story about, this whole thing, everything you've been listening to, this is just a fantasy.
Yeah. And any attempts to sue either one of us can, by listening to this sentence right now, you are agreeing to never sue any of us in the past or future. You just heard it and you listened to it. So by law, you can't sue us. You listen to the audio.
But there was like a rage that I lived with.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's just in the air all the time, and it's not like you get to go back to your apartment. You live in the house with the anger.
Right. And so there was nowhere to really go.
Would you party a lot?
Yeah. But here's the thing is, like, I did every school activity. I was president of student council. I was in every play. I was an editor of the poetry magazine. I did all that other stuff because I didn't want to go home. So I did all these activities, but my grades really suffered. And
did teachers like you? Did you find a way to at least get passing grades because that they didn't want to see you
almost
fail?
I failed a class in high school.
Do you remember which one?
And yes. I did this class I did a class called algebra. I took algebra and I couldn't figure out, what is the hyperboles and ellipses?
What about them?
I just couldn't conceptually, I just never grasped it. And at the time they were trying something in my high school called outcome-based education, where if you don't get 80% or higher, you fail. So you take the test over and over and over until you get 80%. So
you can never actually fail?
Well, that was the hypothesis. Until I was the one who never got above 80%, and I ended up going to summer school for algebra. I went there every week. I had a tutor. My sister's boyfriend tutored me. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to be done with algebra. I never passed. And then my teacher retired. And they were like, there's no way Mr. Moore can continue to give you tests. It's like I would still be taking the test. I
just
never
test purgatory.
I just never grasped it. It was something where I was just like, I don't understand. And they were like, we have to give you a failing grade. And I was like, I'm not going to get into colleges. My college counselor was like, you're not going to get into school. You're going to have to go, to like a community college or something.
I always thought it was just so dumb that they're forcing all kids to, pre-internet, there was no other way you could organize it, but just the fact that you don't need to know about ellipsis and hyperboles, and even to this day, and even if you had learned it, the computer in your phone is taking over that job anyway.
Right.
You don't have to visualize these hypothetical things that you're never going to use, and it would be so much better if we just taught critical thinking and taught yoga and taught how to stay chill, like not beat yourself up in your head all the time.
Or use a credit card.
Yeah.
I didn't understand anything about, I was like, wait, I have credit?
Or taxes.
My
they don't
favorite
teach us
store?
taxes.
Yeah. It's crazy. I know. No practical.
Andy Haynes' joke about, him being broke, and he's saying that I feel like I was just at the worst generation that, crap, what is the joke? I'm butchering it, but basically, most of my years in high school were spent trying to prove that I wasn't gay. And I feel like if you told a kid in high school now that he was gay, he would just say, oh, well, I guess that's just part of my journey then, and then immediately start coding. And I think there's some truth to that, is that we had bad education, bad social dynamic, bad everything. It's a prison, basically, growing up, unless you're just one of 2 or 3 people. But I don't think they had it easy either, whether, this cartoonish idea of the football captain had it good. I think that dude was sad too.
Right.
And We're putting our kids in these little prisons that they hate and aren't learning. Like, you don't need to know who the 17th president is. The phone knows. But you do need to know how to not commit suicide, because people know how to commit suicide and really want to do that.
Right.
And I feel like we should spend more time. Maybe not spend.
I am glad that I was made, like, that someone told me I had to read certain books.
Like literature, not textbooks. Yeah.
Yes. That I feel grateful for. And
I think it's not a matter of let's just teach them critical thinking and then release them, but a more catered way of, like, it's clear that she's not going to be an algebraist when she grows up, and she has no interest in it, but she does have interest in these books. Why don't we double down on books and then double down on Peter Chang's algebra and give him that? Sorry for the racist Chang. How do you know Peter Chang is Chinese? He might be.
Right. We don't know.
Yeah, he's white Protestant. He's a WASP. I just learned that. WASP is white Anglo Saxon Protestant.
Right.
Yeah, the ultimate cis white.
Right. There's
male.
also a Steve Martin play called Wasp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know he had plays.
Yes, he's a playwright. Yeah, he wrote Meteor Shower, which is on Broadway, that Amy Schumer starred in.
Didn't know she starred in it. Didn't know he had a play.
It just happened. Yeah.
I knew what Broadway was, though.
I mean, look.
I'm not a musical. Are you a musical Broadway theater person?
I like theater. I'm not connected to musicals, really, but I like soundscapes.
What's the play, or do you like soundscapes?
No, just in general. Like,
feeling sound.
Yeah, I like when I go to, like, an art exhibit or something and there's, like, an element of sound.
Me too. It's not the same in just headphones. The actual vibrations in the air have to interact with your body to get the full thing on your organs and heart. And even the cat's purr is good for your organs. It the frequency of it helps get the smoothie going inside.
Have you ever heard of the Rife machine? RIFE. There's I'm trying to think of who the inventor was. His name may have been Royal
Alexander Rife.
Something.
That's okay.
But it's a
just call him Rifeman.
You hold these metal kind of
a Thetan reader.
Well, it's a little bit like that, except that it delivers a certain frequency that heals people of diseases.
Oh.
And so you turn different channels, so might be breaking down a tumor or something.
Oh, cool.
And it uses sound, to heal and to kill certain bacteria.
That's what they say the ancient Egyptians might have had. If you go down that rabbit hole of pyramid, ancient technology stuff, is necessarily it's not necessarily aliens. It's just that they had technology and understood vibration better. Because everything is, when you look down in the world at anything, you don't see stubborn particles. There's no such thing as a particle. It's a construct. Everything is a vibration. So the only thing we're witnessing is a vibration of energy, and we're that. Your cells replace themselves completely. Every 7 years, you're a completely different you. The particles making you up. So it boils down to you being a vibration.
We should have birthdays for every 7. We should have a certain day, a regeneration day.
Oh, yeah. But I guess it doesn't all happen at once, and it's not like a snake shedding its skin and then it's new skin. It's kind of happening all at once. And your cells are dividing a billion cells are all splitting within the minute. Even then it's multiplying. So you're never just this one static thing that we see ourselves as. You're always changing.
Wow.
And to get really deep with it, it's flickering at the smallest level. It's flickering in and out of existence. All your particles are going to the deepest part of the vacuum and then back out, and it's happening kind of the way a TV does. It's like a pixel doing that. So it makes me feel, because it literally is happening that way. You're going out of existence and then back into existence. So you're born anew at every single micro moment. It's a chance to be completely fresh because you went all the way back to source. And back here, which is why meditation is good, because it's getting in touch with your vacuum self. Now, I'm trying to
Your vacuum self.
Yeah, like just completely the vacuum.
I just say yesterday I needed it so badly.
Meditation
I was like, something is wrong, right? Like I just felt like really out of alignment with myself.
Do you do yoga?
Couldn't get it right. I do, but I'm actually slightly injured right now.
Because of the Lyme or different?
No, I was in a car accident.
Oh, LaCroix elbow. That's right.
Oh, did I tell you? Yeah.
You did it on stage, and then I asked
about having
about
LaCroix
it.
elbow.
Yeah, you had. It was, who was it? It wasn't a Lyft driver. That was my other friend who a Lyft driver crashed into a tree, and she also hurt her arm, but in a different way. But I merged those two together.
Okay, I had two things happen. One was like LaCroix elbow. I did talk about on stage, which is like I was carrying LaCroix and I was like, ow, like something weird happened in the way I twisted my arm. But then a few weeks ago, someone hit me in my car. Yeah.
On top
but
of
I feel
all
like
that,
I can't talk about it because I have like a case right now.
Gotcha. Putting that in the box too, and not opening it.
We'll flag it for follow-up.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to something you said earlier, which, or I'm going to actually use this for the 10 seconds of silence. Then I'm going to ask you if you didn't hear it in the first podcast that you listened to of this, I do 10 seconds of silence every episode at a random point, and it's not even a meditation. It's just silence, just to have it, and afterwards we feel refreshed, and it's just a thing I like to do, and I explain it a lot in every episode, and today I'm forgetting why I do it and why I explain it, but we're going to do it now. Oh yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was. So what I was going to ask you, to break the silence with this newfound energy after having gone to the vacuum and back 10 seconds worth, is the Lyme disease giving you that perspective of, oh, well, there's this stuff I need to do while I'm still here. What do you consider in that category? The stuff that, if you were in your deathbed, like after hundreds of years of life, looking back on, like what makes you satisfied that, like, yeah, I accomplished that thing, I did that. What is on your mind with that?
Putting the stuff out there to be shared. I have a big like backlog of stuff that I've made. And
it's all on a hard drive somewhere?
On a hard drive, or I write poetry, and so it's really important for me to kind of put that together and find a way to share that, and that's a really great question. To let my friends know that I love them. I really want to work on, I have some relationships in my life where I'm like, this is my dear friend. Like, I have deep friendships. I have a lot of kind of like acquaintance friends, but like I have a few friendships where I feel like
past the bone.
Yes.
Just deep, deep, deep.
Exactly. I like that. So I want to be there for my friends. And
are you not there for them now?
No, I think I am.
So you want to just continue being there for them?
Yeah, I want to be a good friend.
Yeah,
I think
you're
kind of
a
a life
friend.
Goal, I think. Yeah.
But so the other one that stuck out is the poetry. So you write poetry and you hoard it. You don't share it.
I have something coming out actually this soon in Hotel America. America spelled with a K. The next
is that
issue,
a magazine?
Yeah.
Oh, neato.
It's the next issue. Yeah, the poem is called "Sleeping with the King," and I just this week sent some stuff out.
Do you aspire to make books of your own just poems?
Mm-hmm. I do. So that's something outside of comedy, but it kind of
I think they're all the same.
Informs it too. Yeah, they're tied together for sure.
Yeah, it's all blending into a thing of just expression, and that's why we're seeing people being able to take off on on Patreon with just, I've brought up Cumtown a few times. Cumtown is a podcast by Nick Mullen, who I did comedy with back in Austin, and he has a podcast with two other comic friends. He's based in Brooklyn, and they do a Patreon, and their podcast is called Cumtown, and it makes about $35,000 a month, and it's super lax and not even that much attention to sound quality or anything, but just because of their authenticity, they've attracted people that are into what they're doing. And there's also a dad and his son that cut things in half on YouTube. They're millionaires. There's 12-year-old slime makers, you know, when kids are into slime now.
What made you think of him?
Of Mullen? Oh, just maybe because I was just listening to that podcast the other day or something, or I brought it up as an example. But
of poetry?
Oh no, of the fact that you can poetry didn't make me think of Cumtown.
Of poetry.
No, it made me think that you can do anything, even though you might have put it in a box of comedy.
Okay,
you don't have to be like, it's not comedy, therefore I can't do it because I'm not a poet. I am a comedian. The world doesn't want poetry from me. They only want comedy from me. But that's not true. There might be people that love your poetry and then don't like your comedy, and vice versa, but you should still be communicating with them and giving them the good stuff rather than hoarding it. And I'm guilty of it too. I hoard a lot, and I don't release a lot, and I release stuff that probably is not baked yet, but you don't know until you put it out. So the whole gist of that is just words of encouragement.
And I think kind of overall, like giving myself over to my endeavors and being, not being fearless, because everyone has fear, but acting despite the fear. Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's the whole, you might know this already, but the difference between bravery and courage is not being afraid, and bravery is being afraid and doing that thing anyway. So they're similar, but oftentimes we need bravery, and it's kind of nice to think of it in that way, because it's like, I'm supposed to be scared, but just will your body to do the thing that you're trying to talk yourself out of doing. And having the Lyme disease, it's probably given you gratitude that, oh, wow, I can control my hand. It's not just flinging around everywhere.
Right, especially when I go through a long stretch where I feel okay. It's like glorious. And I'm like, oh, I feel like a normal person in society. Maybe I forgot to bring my supplements with me today, but it's like nothing weird is happening as a result. Yeah,
that's awesome. And some people are miserable as that, which is now the highest achievement, as being in a body that's functioning well, rather than going haywire. There's so much that can go wrong.
Everyone is in a state of health, I also realize. I mean, having this experience has made me more aware that a lot of people are going through like physical ailments. Like so many people are like, oh, I have candida, or I'm having liver issues. Like there are so many like things swirling around now. And I think it's like we live in kind of like a toxic world. And so we have to kind of like navigate.
I think it's the best it's ever been, though. It's better than when the Black Plague was around.
Well.
And depression was, you would just drink it away.
I actually think it's pretty bad right now.
Oh, it's terrible. But I'm saying we're always doing a little better medically. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think autoimmune illnesses are on the rise. I mean, Lyme is it's like pandemic now. So many people have MS now and ALS and these kind of like autoimmune disorders. And why?
Oh, yeah. I'm 100%.
I mean, I don't know anyone's grandma who had MS.
Before? I think it's because they would just die, though, right? They would die before it was diagnosed. I mean, I could be wrong with it, but are you saying there's new conditions that didn't exist 100 years ago that are now manifesting?
I do. I am saying that.
Oh. Yeah. What do you think the cause of it is, if they're new?
Well, a lot of these diseases...
Nutritional?
I'm like, yes, they are. No, I think it's like toxicity. I think a lot of people have like heavy metal toxicity, and like mold is an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that isn't really like diagnosed. I think there are a lot of, and they're finding that a lot of autoimmune illnesses, because the Lyme testing is so inaccurate, are actually Lyme. Like you'll go on the boards and people will be like, "Yeah, my husband thought he had ALS. Then he took this accurate test for Lyme, the IGeneX test, and found out it was that instead." So these kind of like blanket diagnoses that they give you when they don't really know what your disease is, they just kind of put the pieces together based on your symptoms. But no one can tell them what caused their body to turn against itself.
Yeah.
I really do think it's an epidemic.
We're still in the dark. Do you ever watch The Nick? It's about a hospital 100 years ago.
I'm like, no, I haven't. Yeah.
It's about a hospital. It's got Clive Owen. It's about a hospital 100 years ago, but it's just a window into not only, whether it's racism back then, like the best doctor, like he has to practice underground because he's black, and like white people won't let him operate on him even though he's the only one that can do it, and he patented this one hernia surgery and they still won't listen to him. But aside from that, just the stuff that they don't know, they're not using leeches, but it's in between leeches and where we are now, and just really, dirty knives, like high failure rate of stuff. Just, it reminds us that we're just these monkeys trying to figure out, like, we have bodies, but we don't understand what really keeps them going. We know a lot, and there's people that know way more than I do, but as a whole, we've got a lot of gaps, and some of it is from recently emerging phenomenon, whether it's the materials we're using and surrounded by. Maybe there's, because there's microwaves in the air, radio waves in the air in this room right now, which we're not detecting.
Electromagnetic frequency is actually something that when you're that can exacerbate illness. Being around too many EMFs, they're called.
Electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That certain bacteria and stuff in your body like responds negatively to it.
But overall, whether there are steps being taken backwards, I think that we're evolving towards higher and higher realms as an everything, as a universe, as a humans, as
I'm glad you feel
as people.
That way.
Our own dooms are still certain. Like I could hit my head walking out of here and not be able to articulate any of the stuff I'm saying, not be able to feel it, any of that thing. But I'm still, I can't help it. I'm an optimist at heart. I feel like ultimately after all of it, the you underneath all of that is eternal, because how else would you have manifested in this 3D reality from nothing had you not?
No, it's true.
We paid nothing to be here.
Chance of being born, even.
It's zero. I've said this before on the podcast, but given there being infinite time before this moment and infinite time after this moment, the chances of us being in this moment right now are not close to zero. It's actual zero. It's actual zero to be in this moment right now. And it's cool that you and I can have this conversation and encode it in a wave form, and someone is just listening to that wave form, and it gives them the appearance that we're there, but we're not there. We could be dead and someone's listening to this in the present at 1,000 years from now. And I just think it's cool, and we don't even understand how it all works.
You might like, do you know who Louise Hay is?
Louis C.K.? Say it again.
No. Louise Hay.
Louis C.K. Is her middle name C? That'd be so great.
It is.
Louis C.A.
No. She's like one of, kind of like, she's kind of a spiritual guru, kind of like Wayne Dyer. You're familiar with Wayne Dyer?
No, I'm not.
What about Marianne Williamson?
No.
Are you familiar with A Course in
Miracles? Ryan did this to me too. Like he had names of people, and I'm just like, no,
please, it's not a test.
Oh no.
I didn't mean to be like.
Oh no, not at all.
Are you familiar with?
Oh no, and I didn't mean to give
they're
you
kind of all in
the
the
impression
same,
that I had.
They're kind of all in the same world, I guess. But Louise Hay has a great talk called "The Totality of Possibilities." That's kind of all about that, and opening, like saying, we don't know, there might be a cure. We don't like to stay open to the possibility.
Yeah. And mind does affect matter, and it doesn't mean you
seem
can
to be in that place. Yeah,
you can't necessarily positive think your way out of everything, because you might be offering counter. It's the whole law of attraction thing. Like, even if you and the point of law of attraction is it's basically gravity, and that which is like itself is drawn to itself, and everything that exists in the material world is preceded by a vibrational equivalent. So it has to exist as an idea before it can actually be a thing. And a vibration is what? It's a frequency. And what is frequency? It's how frequently does the energy fluctuate here, and then down, and then down, and then down. So red has a frequency. It's a longer bandwidth. And then purple has a shorter frequency. How frequently does it hit that? And it's just describing motion. When you really look at it, you can explain all of the woo-woo stuff in terms of motion and energy. And I think that the woo-woo people and the materialist scientists differ only in the terms that they use. I think they're describing the exact same thing when you come down to it. I don't think there's any difference, because they're both magic, and just one of them likes the identity of, I don't like the Bible, and I wear a lab coat, and I like black shirts, and I like the cosmos and describing angular momentum and charge. And then there's some people that like to describe it in terms of infinite possibility and love and manifestation, but it's just words describing the same thing. But so you're saying she has the what was it called, the potential of
the totality of possibilities,
which is describing what? Infinity, right?
Yes,
all of
exactly.
And infinity is something else to think about. That's something, actually, Greg Fitzsimmons uses that as his crutch to religion, because I think he's religious, not super religious, but he's just not atheist. And he always says, like, well, anyone who's super atheist, I always ask him, like, what do you make of infinity then? How do you have infinity and not have then every possibility play out, whether it's this religion plays out in this configuration, or it's also meaningless in this configuration. It's bigger than anyone's box, whether it's my woo-woo infinite optimism box or the other person's negative box, or that. And I just want to fill people with the hope that I get from listening to that kind of stuff, because it gives me hope, and I'm just trying to make some of it myself, like muffins or cookies or something.
Because that's what people are looking for, is to connect and find a way to feel okay.
Do you have heroes too, like for poetry and stuff?
I do, yeah.
Like, who are some poetry heroes?
Right now I'm reading, I love Anne Sexton. Are you familiar with Anne Sexton? She was really close to Sylvia Plath.
There's a book of hers on our shelf, but it's not mine. So I know it's in here, but what about her? I think.
Well, she's one of my favorite poets.
Oh, right on. Was she one of the people that got you into doing it, or you just always wrote?
No, I just did it on my own. Yeah. No, Marge Piercy was the first poet that I really loved. And Anne Sexton, and now I really love these two poets, Tony Hoagland and Dean Young. Dean Young has a book called Bender that is, it's one of the most incredible books of poetry I've ever written. And I also love this poet, Jeffrey McDaniel, who I feel like his poetry informs my comedy a little bit.
How so?
It's, actually, maybe informs my poetry more, but it's more, or I relate to it creatively. He's I can't do this. I don't know.
That's okay.
Just kidding.
Okay, all right. Or not cut, but keep in the cut. There's one more thing I was going to ask you, and we should probably wrap it up pretty soon. Okay. I feel like we've been
faded. I felt like my brain just went that on that one.
We can only talk about stuff for so long, but I really appreciate you coming here and
Jeffrey
talking
McDaniel.
about
I'll find the words to describe it. Oh my God!
Is that your GPS?
How did that happen?
We're keeping it in.
Just curious about what I can do. What can you do?
Who, Siri?
That's what she said. I'm curious about what you can do. What can you do?
Did we trigger it with something we said? Did I say something with Siri in it?
Oh, maybe I said I can't really talk about it.
Oh.
Oh, and so maybe it
Yeah,
thought
Siri,
I said,
we might have said something that sounded like Siri, so it woke up and then started talking about
I love
the
it.
things.
See, everyone wants to join the conversation.
Yeah.
We're having a dialogue.
Our
here.
first robot guest, I think.
Our first.
What do you feel
Yeah.
about does the future give you hope or scare you, or both?
I'm looking for an honest answer.
You shouldn't have to look for an honest answer, right? You just
Well, I mean,
blurt
I'm
it.
trying to feel it.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Oh, like if you're looking for one, it for me at least, it seems like you're not just honest is like the first thing that comes to your
yeah.
mouth. Like, does it
Right.
excite you or scare you? And it might change. Like, it might excite you now, and then it might scare you at 7 p.m.
Right.
tonight, and then it might excite you at 8
Well, I
p.m.
think the reason it's a challenging question for me is I'm trying not to think about the future.
Ah, there we go.
And so I'm not sure.
Which is a flawed question because, future isn't real. It's made up.
Right.
Same paths is made up too. You can't point to it. You can't touch it. It's something that we hold on to in our mind. And it's all just now. I've said this one before too, but if you zoom out all the way, nothing is happening and there's no one
Right.
even there to do anything. And it's all perfect and it's all balanced, and every moment ever to occur is kept safely in that hard drive thing. So if you're worried about things fading or your work fading, your legacy, your friends, your things that are gone now, it's not actually gone. Everything is all still there. The universe,
Everything's happening at once.
yeah, the universe wants to keep information. It's smart. It wants to add to its complexity. It's not bad and entropic. There is entropy to shed to make room for stuff, but it's not doing that. The whole thing. I think. I don't actually know. It's just to give you hope. But any last words before we die here on this waveform, but then continue to
Well-
exist outside of the waveform?
I just realized my microphone is propped up on two books.
Uh-huh.
One is called the math book and one is called the science book.
Yeah, math and science. Thick books give a
This is
steady
like
base to sit on.
revisiting the parabolas and hyperbolas of my life.
I planned
I mean,
it.
it's
I wanted
right
to give
here.
you an anxiety attack.
No, I love it. I feel like it's like here to heal. It's here to heal.
It is.
Pythagoras to the 57th dimension.
Math really is beautiful when it's shown visually. It's just when they're condensing it to symbols that we have to make sense of because we have to get an A on the test is when it sucks ass. But when you're looking at, the flower of life get drawn, or when you're looking
Right.
at just, I don't know, complex,
Oh, you mean that perfectly symmetrical?
the overlapping circles that create a flower and then abide by the phi ratio, that spiral
Right.
that goes outwards. That's called the
Yes.
golden ratio, the perfect ratio. It's the reason we think anything is beautiful. It's because it fits in within that thing. And we see the spiral within galaxies. We see it in the sun. We see it, and it's just everywhere. It's what makes up this universe, at least. So I'm just trying to say that math is the stuff that makes up creation. So it is beautiful, but this
Right.
version of math in school is ugly, and it strips it of all its beauty and condenses it into a thing that we then
Right.
hate. But I digress. I was trying to wrap this up like
Well, I
10
love
minutes
it
ago.
now.
Really? Okay, good. Did I ask you any last words already, or you already said
I think
that?
I kind of was just like in the moment with these books. But if you have a last question or something,
How do you get up in the morning and fight the version of yourself that doesn't want to get out of bed and says, "What's the point?" What's something
that's
you
a
do?
great question. I actually just I just did something yesterday that I was like, tomorrow morning when you wake up, play this message. I recorded a message for myself.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was like, welcome to the day. It was like, I recorded a message for myself to like get myself excited about the things that I
leave
had
post-it
ahead.
notes for myself. I've never done the
Oh,
vocal
really?
one. Yeah, I leave post-it notes to guide me to not depress myself. Because
Yes.
sometimes even meditation, yoga, and good
Right.
sleep and good exercise is not sufficient for whatever reason, and
Right.
that's okay because you're not owed happiness every day. We're
Right.
lucky to get happiness sometimes.
Right.
We're not
I definitely have to work. I have to make a lot of adjustments before I'm okay to go out into the world.
Me too.
Yeah.
Maybe not as many, maybe more. Probably not as many because I don't have the lime thing. Knock on whatever this IKEA
Right.
thing, not made of wood, is.
Right.
And
Yeah. But it's not the center of my life either. It is in the moments that I deal with it, it's the center, but then I let it kind of fade into the outskirts.
that's good.
I've just started to want to talk about it because I feel like I want other people to know if they have a set of mysterious symptoms that they should look a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, and not to be hypochondriac or anything, but more to accept. And it's okay to have,
Yeah.
that's your cross to bear, I guess. I always think of if my consciousness was to go into someone else's body, no matter who it is, whatever age, there's something about it that I'd be like, oh, that's a weird thing you got going with your shoulder there. Oh, why does my right side of my mouth hurt? And just, there's so many little things, the way that our car has a squeak or some type of kink, for lack of a better word. We all have something like that is going on. Very few people are not playing hurt. I think you can only play hurt in this world, mentally or physically. Everybody's got some kind of hurt, and you got to play hurt. You can't just wait till it's not hurt. So get out on that field and play hurt. Yeah, I'm too motivational. I don't even want to be a motivational person. I think it's tacky and not good, and I want to be more like
Really?
Howard Stern or Doug Stanhope or George Carlin.
But that's what you're saying it. You
Yeah.
said you were an optimist.
Yeah, I'm both.
Yeah.
I think pessimism is very funny, and it's more funny to rip on stuff and say it's stupid. But as a true core philosophy, if I actually believe that, the logical conclusion would be suicide, and I'm clearly not
Right.
committing suicide, so I must like life, so I must be an optimist. And you should lean into the thing you are. If you're an optimist, you should lean into it, and if you're a pessimist, don't lean into suicide. But
Right.
I guess the point I was trying to make is, like we moved here to Los Angeles to pursue the arts and that kind of thing. So it's wise to lean into it rather
Like
than.
I moved here for a guy, but
Did you really?
well, yeah, but but I'm here. I'm here to do
You
business.
didn't leave. You didn't follow him
Yeah.
wherever he went.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap it up. I think that's a good place. Thank you, Lizzy,
All
for
right.
coming. I
Thank
hope you had
you
a
so
good
much for
time. Everyone
having
come
me.
check her out on 31st at Lyric Hyperion
Yes, at 8 and
Theater.
10 p.m.
The new album. It's going to be wonderful. I'll be there. I'll sign her album.
Yes.
Even though it won't be an album yet, I'll sign it. And this is a good episode. It's a good long episode. Just getting a meditation stance.
Yes.
And okay,
Satnam, thank you for having me.
thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.